probably heard of HDR, High Dynamic Range, which is, you know, these techniques. It's a piece of software that turns those 3 or 5 pictures into a beautiful image with lots of tonality. They're not always that beautiful. I find that they sometimes look a little bit like a cartoon, and they're not quite what I like. So I prefer to do it the old-fashioned way. But look, let's show you how to do it HDR, and then we'll have a look at it in Photoshop as well. Here's an average shot where the sky's a little bit too light and the foreground's a little bit too dark. So what we would do is we'd take an exposure for the sky that looks a little bit like this, and you know, the sky looks great, but the foreground is way too dark. So now we take a third photograph, and that's going to be exposing correctly for the foreground, but now the sky is too light, because that's the limitation. Now, some modern cameras, if you're quick and you haven't got time, some modern phones have got a special HDR feature that does all of this for you in camera. But let's just show you how easy it is to turn this into an HDR using Lightroom as a starting point. All we do is just select the 3 images that we want to play with, and we come up to Photo, and we go to Photo Merge, HDR, and you press merge and it does its business.
So the blues have come in up here, that's kept the moon.
So as you can see, it's done quite a good job. Let's just compare that.
Way too dark on the
You can see that's the average exposure, and you can see that the HDR has improved it. But you know, it's added in a little bit of colour, the colour's quite different. You lose a little bit of control using HDR. So let's open these files in Photoshop, and you can do that automatically within Lightroom. So Lightroom will open it for you. Select the 3 images, we come up to Photo, and it just comes down to Edit in Photoshop, but you can see down the bottom, Open as Layers in Photoshop. And that's what we want to do. So here we are in Photoshop, and this does require a little bit of understanding of Photoshop. So this is for our more advanced viewers. So I've got Photoshop, and you can see 3 layers, and I can turn the layers off. And it's just like having 3 photos, one on top of the other. My light layer down below, my middle layer in the middle, and my darker exposure up the top. I can probably actually get rid of the middle layer. Some people do, some people don't. Let's just get rid of that to make life easy. Now on my top layer, I'm going to add a mask, because what I want to do is I want to have the dark sky on top, but I want to mask out, I want to get rid of the dark landscape down below. So I add the mask, that's using this little square with a circle down the bottom, and that's added a white mask. White reveals, everything can be seen, black conceals. And now I'm just going to, I'm making sure I've got a black brush, paint along the bottom there.
Oh, look
and
at
you
that,
can see,
instantly.
And I can also then go and add in adjustment layers later on to lighten and darken and have full control. This is why I prefer Photoshop, because I'm just lightening the areas that I want to. Whereas HDR lightens areas everywhere and darkens areas everywhere. This just gives us a lot more control. And as you can see, it's pretty cool.
And it's not too technical, like you've only got the 3 layers going on.
That's right, and we can minimise it down to 2. One of the tricks I would suggest that when you're in the field is that when you do your exposure, you go -2 stops or -2 EV. You've got your exposure compensation dial, go to -2 rather than -1, and go to +2 rather than +1. One's just not enough of a difference to make a difference.
Love that tip, Peter, especially because I use Photoshop myself, so I'd be going this avenue. I can't wait to see what you do next week.
Me too.